Thank you so much for watching this inclusion video series. The purpose of this inclusion video series is to help teachers, parents, and coaches include children with visual impairments in after-school sports and in physical education. We would like to thank the Lavelle Foundation, the College at Brockport, Campabilities, and the Institute on Movement Studies for Individuals with Visual Impairments for their support for this video series.
Welcome to our video on how to include individuals with visual impairments into inclusive track and field practice and competition. In this video, you will meet several athletes with visual impairments who are successful in track and field. You will learn teaching strategies and accommodations, equipment adaptations, appropriate environment modifications, and valuable resources. Let's start by meeting Lex.
Hi, I'm Lex Gillette, and I'm a Paralympic long jumper and sprinter for Team USA. I have the utmost confidence in you coaches, teachers, and recreation leaders that you can and will learn useful techniques from this video series that will help the blind and visually impaired children and teens interested in being on your running and track clubs. This video will help you identify individualized modifications and accommodations to meet the needs of those with BVI and to meet the spirit of the law. My experience covers teams with non-disabled peers as well as teams specifically for those with BVI. This video is designed for best practices in bringing runners on with BVI to your teams and into your PE class.
Hi Chris, how are you?
Good. I was wondering if I could be on the track team, but I don't know if I can because I have a visual impairment and you might not have the right equipment for me.
Many students with visual impairment or blindness love to participate in sports with their classmates. This video will help you learn accommodations needed to coach and teach track and field skills during inclusive practices and classes. The first strategy is pre-teaching. Pre-teaching is providing additional instruction to the athlete prior to the practice session, such as teaching a skill individually or teaching orientation to a new environment before class or team practice begins. Pre-teaching is important because once a student learns the steps of a task, she can practice on her own to self-check before she does it with the team. Here, our student Chris learns the orientation of the track using a tactile map. Next, we see Chris come to practice 15 minutes early to learn in advance about throwing the shot put. This allows him to know what will happen during practice. If meeting during the day is not an option, try emailing, texting, or posting online the new skill with instruction for the student to practice at home. The second strategy is to gain the student's attention by using their name before giving instructions or corrections. When talking to a group, use the student's name before giving feedback. While the student is running or warming up in a group, be sure to call her name first because she won't be able to tell you are looking at her.
Then Maeve, try and bend your knee to 90 degrees.
The third strategy is to use clear, descriptive, and respectful language. When you give directions, use specific terms such as lean left towards 11 o'clock on a clock face into the turn. It is good to avoid expressions such as like this. Instead, try something like bend knees and hips or extend arms beyond the body. Let's watch and listen to a coach describe and demonstrate the arm position as it releases the shot put.
Yep. We don't want to go too high like a high five, and we don't want to go too low like a door. You want to either, if we have hats on, follow the edge of your hat, or if we have glasses, follow your glasses.
The fourth strategy is using physical guidance. Remember to ask permission to touch the student before providing physical guidance.
Will you be my partner? All right. Is it okay if I touch you?
Yes.
All right.
When you give visual demonstrations, you might ask the student with BVI if she would like to be the demonstrator or model. This teaches the other students on the team while it shows the model what the coach's expectations are. Our group here learns a warm-up exercise that practices proper leg mechanics when running. Here, we see a coach provide physical guidance to position a runner's arm extended back with open palm facing upward to accept a relay baton. The fifth strategy is tactile modeling. Tactile modeling occurs when one person feels another person's static body position. For example, feeling the leg and arm positions for running and the ready and set positions when using starting blocks. Ask the BVI student if she needs tactile modeling before implementing it, and ask the model if he or she feels comfortable doing that. Conversations with the BVI student and model should happen privately before the demonstration. The sixth strategy is coactive movement. Coactive movement is similar to tactile modeling, but is used when a skill is dynamic rather than static. An example of coactive movement is establishing the rhythm of the running arms in opposition to the legs by using 2 poles or hockey sticks. The BVI runner stands behind the coactive partner, and they each hold opposing ends of 2 poles. They begin by walking through the motion and then progress to a jog. The seventh strategy is whole part whole instruction. Some students learn best if they know what the whole skill feels like before it is broken down into parts. Let's watch the demonstration of how to throw the shot put.
Our ready position is we keep the shot in what I call the pocket, keep our elbow extended from our body, and our non-throwing arm directly out towards our target. Okay? Now, as I go to load, I squish bugs with my feet, I get low, and I bring my arm for momentum. I swing, extend, push away from my body. Not too high like a high five, and not too low like a door.
Okay.
All right, would you like to try?
Sure.
Here we go.
Now watch how it is broken down into parts. Here, the athlete practices just one aspect of the shot put until he is proficient in that part. Then, other parts of the skill are learned and put together to practice the whole again. First part, we listen. We hold our open hand to our ear as if we are trying to listen or hear something from afar. Second part, we get low. We twist low on the balls of our feet. Third part, we sweep grass. We take our non-throwing hand and sweep it around. We end by high-fiving the sky. The eighth strategy is guide running. There are 2 main methods of guide running, a human guide and a guide wire. The runner's preference and needs will determine if he uses a tether with his human guide or relies on a guide using a bright shirt color and verbal communication for orientation. There are several important components of guide running with a tether. First, the guide must be able to run faster than the runner with BVI. Second, anyone can be a guide, including peers, teachers, or parents, but it is helpful if both runners are of similar heights. Third, communication is key. Fourth, the guide must be aware that he should continue his arm swing and encourage the student. Fifth, use an appropriate length tether. The length is approximately 1 to 2 feet, depending upon individual preference and the width of the running space. A tether should have minimal elasticity.
So here is our shoelace tether. It's got knots at both ends. I'm going to put my hand up. I'm going to spread my ring finger and pinky apart from my other 3 fingers. I'm going to place the tether in between there and close my fingers so it's tight in there, the knots catching. Then my guide is going to do the same thing with her hand. We want that nice smiley face dip in between us, and we're able to run.
We do not recommend tethering by wrist straps or anything attached to the runners, because if one runner falls, both runners fall. Here we see how the human guide provides directional cues by bending her wrist to the left to run left and flexing her wrist right to steer right. The amount of tension on the tether lets the runner with BVI know in which direction to run. When running on a track, the guide can run on whichever side the runner prefers. In addition, some partners use slight arm-to-arm press accompanied with verbal cues to designate direction. When learning to use a tether, the guide and runner should begin by walking on flat surfaces and then move into jogging and finally running. Once they learn to run in sync with each other, they should repeat the procedure on uneven surfaces if the pair will participate in road races. An important rule to remember is that the runner with visual impairment must cross the finish line before the guide if they are tethered. Not all athletes with BVI need a tether or a guide. Some athletes are able to see the white lines on the track and run independently. Some run only using verbal cues provided by a guide running next to them. Using a guide wire for short sprint races is an option that allows a BVI runner to run independently without a guide. Here are some important components of using a guide wire. The guide wire must be tight and well secured at all times. Always check the guide wire prior to each race. A guide wire positioned at approximately elbow height allows for a more comfortable arm swing. A carabiner with a looped cord clipped onto the wire allows the arm to pump more efficiently back and forth with correct form. Holding directly onto the wire with the hand prevents the arm from moving backward, which is required to produce a pumping movement with the arm, and it produces uncomfortable friction on the skin. There should be a tactile indicator and an auditory sound source to signal that the end of the run is approaching to avoid a collision or abrupt stop. Combining tactile and auditory indicators is good practice because the noise of competition can often drown out the auditory indicator. Tactile indicators include knots in the rope and sections of pool noodles at the end. Auditory indicators include portable sound sources or someone clapping or calling out. All students can use a treadmill to practice running. When on a treadmill, the coach has the opportunity to give physical guidance during the run to correct any biomechanical errors. Treadmill running also provides opportunities for runners with low vision to observe their coaches or teammates' running form. They can get close enough to see the proper knee lift and arm position and swinging motion. If needed, they can safely use tactile modeling to feel the movement and position of the arms and legs and experience the rhythm of the runner. The 9th strategy is to integrate an assistant, peer, or adult paraeducator into the session. Although the student with a visual impairment may need some individual time with the coach, please don't segregate the child with an adult assistant to learn everything on the side. The IEP or 504 plan may list a paraeducator under supplementary aids and services, which includes help in after-school sports. This adult may not be able to keep up with the young athlete, but may serve during stationary skills and drills and warm-ups. The coach should communicate with the athletic director if a student with BVI needs a running guide. The 10th strategy is to use play-by-play announcing during events or mock meets so that the BVI athlete can stay engaged with the events. Use this strategy when events are going on in real time. To keep practice fun or when others are learning by watching something that is not in the lesson or practice schedule, make believe you are a radio announcer and give the student a play-by-play.
Dave out in front in the 2nd lane and Lily is catching up behind him in the 4th lane. Next we have...
The 11th tip is to provide information in an accessible format. If you give a print handout to team members, best practice says to provide it to the student with BVI in the format that he needs. This includes large print of 18-point or greater, Braille, or electronically via text, email, or posted on a media site. Here, our student listens to the practice agenda on her phone. Let's review some strategies while our athlete practices the long jump. The coach applied a cord under bright yellow tape along the boundary lines of the running lane. Our athlete explores the visually and tactually enhanced boundary with her hands and feet. Next, she steps into the sand pit to determine the drop-off and to differentiate herself with the hard running surface and the softer sand. After physically exploring the whole picture of the long jump area, her coach gives her a tactile map so she can explore each component that makes up the long jump area. For reinforcement, she may want to walk the area again with a tactile map. The coach gives the athlete a wooden artist model positioned as if the figure is in mid-air over the sand pit. The figure provides another way to experience tactile modeling. After learning the position of the figure, our athlete mimics the position for her coach. You may meet some runners with dual sensory impairment who may be hard of hearing or deaf in addition to having a visual impairment. 1. Always instruct in the same spot. If there is an intervener, the intervener will also wait at a designated spot to interpret. Remember, a guide will be running with the BVI athlete, not the intervener. 2. Provide the runner with the option of selecting where he can learn, listen, and see information best. 3. Learn how to work with an intervener if the runner uses sign language. Make sure to pause before demonstrating so that the student can finish focusing on the intervener and then look at the coach. When giving instruction, look at the runner. Do not focus on the intervener. 4. Provide key phrases to let the runner know what to call each part of practice. 5. Send home instructions and plans ahead of time so that the runner can use assistive technology to access the information independently. It is important to note that the United States Association of Blind Athletes has an excellent video on their website on guide running and guiding for jumps.
I've been involved in several sports through my school career. I've been on the swim team, a pole vaulter, on the track team as a sprinter, and on the cross country team. And thanks to all the accommodations that my coaches were willing to make, I was able to feel just as included on the team as all my sighted peers. And that is something that every kid in general, I think, should feel like they can be a part of something and be successful and be able to accomplish whatever they put their mind to because they have the support and the accommodations of their coaches.